I think we're live. Maybe.
Cut in, cut out. Testing.
Jimmy, are we live? Thumbs
Jimmy.
up. All right, good deal.
Jimmy doesn't have any thumbs.
Dude.
Remember, they got cut off.
Oh man,
Dude,
that was a terrible
chainsaw accident.
Yeah,
Dude. I mean, literally,
you made him chop down the biggest tree in your backyard.
But then it wasn't even during the tree cutting. I told him to go trim the roses, and he took the chainsaw.
Yeah.
No wonder he cut his fingers off.
That was bad.
I know, Jimmy.
Dude, speaking of freak accidents, I almost flipped my car on the way back from your house. By the way, folks, I had a nice dinner at the Hazenfield Manor. You got a beautiful house.
Hazenfield Estate.
Yes, it's awesome. I got to meet Cole's wonderful wife, Amanda. Shout out to Amanda, by the way. She is real. I thought Cole was playing me all this time. He had hired a professional actress in Kids, but she is the real deal. Well done.
She's a real peel.
But yeah, I was coming back from dinner, dude, and I don't know, was at 275. I took the loop, and dude, my car freaking like spun out, like fishtailed. I'm like, uh-oh.
Did you like hydroplane?
I guess probably, like I slid a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I was just like, this isn't good. Good thing there were no cars around, and I wasn't going too quickly. I was probably only taking it at like 75.
Yeah. Yeah, you were.
I was taking the turn at 75, more like 40. You
were cruising.
But yeah, sometimes life flashes before your eyes.
You know, I've been thinking about that actually lately. Not a ton, but how I haven't been in an accident in a long time. And I was driving back from Michigan. It's just funny you brought that up because I was thinking like how scary it would be to get in an accident on the highway. Mm. Like it's just, I feel like it's just a different vibe. If you get in an accident on the highway versus if you get an accident like on the side road.
I want to jump into a different lane and talk about a different topic already. I don't want to talk about this morbid stuff.
No, it's kind of just, yeah. I like how you said jump into a different lane though.
Yeah, see, I'm firing at all cylinders, man.
You got oxygen flowing to the brain today.
I do, man. It's that nose breathing.
Well,
that I was
open us up
because
I want to bring up the first topic, but you open us up.
Alrighty. Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted Exchanges. I am your host or co-host or just a guy that sits on a couch and talks about all sorts of things. And I've got one of the best in the business right next to me, Mr. Cole Hazenfield.
Thank you.
He's back again for another episode. He hasn't quit on me yet.
Yeah.
He's a dog.
Okay. We can't even go there today. Today, I should have started barking. Today...
Dude, you can't do.
You guys are lucky. You guys are lucky because we're gonna dig in a bit. We're gonna get some information on Mr. Hayden over here.
Oh no!
And we're gonna ask specifically today. We're gonna talk about something that I know little to nothing about. I hope Hayden opens my eyes.
It sounds about like everything.
Well, I feel like, especially in the world we live in, and we're talking business, professional careers, right? The world we live in the business world. There's all different types of industries and companies that have different names for different things. But one of the ones that I've never, like, you have business development representative or sales representative or account executive or, there's a million different roles. But one of the ones I've heard a lot, never understood actually what you do, is product manager. And Hayden happens to be a product manager. And I'd love to understand, especially because I think it's for people that are in the role or looking about getting into product management, and just for me to understand, like, what does it mean to be a product manager?
You're gassing me up, kind of, too.
Yeah,
or the role.
Hopefully.
I appreciate that, by the way.
Hopefully.
So, great question. I'm going to give my opinion, which is typically what we do when we talk together. It's not like this is right or wrong, but... product management to me is solving problems, big or small, but breaking things along the way. That's the simplified definition to me in terms of what it means to be a product manager. Mm-hmm. And if I look back, not to take us too far down a rabbit hole here, I've been a product manager my entire life. I'm constantly learning how things work. I have a curious mind. I want to know why things work the way they do. And once I start to understand more about why things are a certain way, my mind starts racing thinking, okay, that's interesting. What about doing it this way? or can we make it better? And that's a really important skill set to have as a product manager. You're trying to solve these problems for a company, no matter, again, how big the company is. If it's only a couple people that work, for a startup, so be it, or it could be a Fortune 10 company. And basically, again, you're gathering research constantly from numerous, I'll use the word stakeholders, which can be thrown out there pretty loosely, or there are times where you're doing your own investigation where you're trying to figure out, okay, sales are down for the month of May, and that could be because of X, Y, and Z. So you kind of look into that, you pinpoint that area, you try to peel back the onion or the layers and figure out, okay, this is happening. Maybe I should use like a specific example that might make it more easier to comprehend. So I'll use an example from a few years back, and I'll try to be somewhat discreet because I don't want to share certain information.
Right.
But basically, let's say that I start a new e-commerce company, and I'm seeing a lot of people come to my website, but there are a lot of people that are not necessarily creating accounts. And I want people to create an account because ultimately that's how I get those customers to be more sticky or engaged.
Right.
I want them to be loyal customers. That's one goal. So you start to look at the data and you realize, okay, there's not a lot of people coming in, or there are a lot of people coming in, but they're not necessarily creating accounts. You look at that sign-in flow and you realize it hasn't changed since the beginning of time. You're still asking people to sign up with their first and last name, their email, their address, their social security number, their credit card. My jokes aren't landing tonight with Cole. He's just straight
No, I actually was trying to straight face you there.
But point being, it's just like
Blood
a free form, and it's like that takes time. Even if it's only 30 seconds, people get bombarded. Think about
everywhere you go.
Exactly.
Everywhere you go, it's like, all right, sign up for our newsletter or sign up for this. And it's like, we want every little detail. And it's just like, do I like really care that much? And a lot of times I just won't even do it.
Exactly. So instead of having a very generic and basic sign-in process that can be way too long for customers and it's not letting people ultimately sign up, you decide that, okay, how do I optimize or make this experience better? And one way of doing that would be to implement, let's say, like a social login. And social login would be like use your Google account, your Facebook account.
Oh, that's really popular. I feel like it's everywhere now.
Exactly. So that's a particular example that I like to use where it's like, okay, you had this experience to start and you realized, okay, I need to get over here. I need to get more people in the door with signing up. So how do I do that? And again, this is just one specific example. I'm going to implement a social login where customers can bypass all the crap of filling out, their name and information. So that makes the process so much quicker, less pain-free, and they're in just like that. And now you start to collect their data and you get to where you need to go. So that's a prime example to me in my area in terms of like what a product manager can do. Again, you're taking these problems on and you're trying to dissect and figure out, okay, why are things happening the way that they're happening? What are our goals? What's the North Star? How do we get there? And what's really cool, what I like to preach to people is our North Star might be this, but there could be 3 or 4 different avenues that we can take to get there.
Right.
And that's where I partner with very smart people smarter than I am. And I kind of present to them the problem, hey, using the example of there's a lot of people not signing up. How can we, figure out a better way to get people to sign up? And that's where we partner or I'll partner with folks like developers or architects, and we kind of brainstorm. We kind of use the word discovery, which is just a formal, in my mind, way of having just a meeting. Some people would call me out saying like, no, there's a lot more to that. Sure. I don't go by the book. I never really have gone by the book, and hopefully I don't get fired for saying that. I hope not. I'm not. But point being is you partner with a collaborative team, and that's where you get to work with these brilliant minds, and they get to come to the table saying, okay, there's this potential path that we can take. And as a product manager, you wear multiple hats, and you're taking in all this input from a developer, from an architect, from a business stakeholder that might be saying like, yeah, how do we get more people into our website? They're not signing on, going back to that example. So as a product manager, the way that it's been framed up to me where I'm at is like, you're kind of like a CEO where you're putting people in charge of making decisions, but at the same time, like you have a lot of onus, and there's a lot of weight in some of the decisions that you are making too. Not to say that I'm the only person making the decision, because that's not the case, but I'm influencing and trying to help, this collective team come together and figure out what is the best solution forward. Again, like I said, there could be 3 or 4 different paths that we take. Path 1 might still get us to that North Star, but it might take us 6 months. Whereas path 2 might only take us 3 months, but it's going to double the amount of money to get there, or the cost is. So it's like you have to evaluate what's the best route to take. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. And again, you got my gears turning, because obviously not knowing, like you don't know what you don't know. And
Love
the
that
way
saying.
you just don't, right? And so product manager, and I know you, I got, Ben's on Cloud 9 out in Santa Monica working for another company as a product manager. But I've always heard that term, and you've met a lot of people that have had that title, and I've just never, coming from this just strictly business development side, like sales leadership, coming from that side, and this is what I'm going to wrap a bow in this for you, because this is what really got me interested in what you had to say. From what you're telling me, product manager is, when you said the CEO of that role, that was really cool, and that your goal is to problem solve. Like, how can we? So from when I would think about product manager, I'd be like, how do you manage a product? Like, what does that entail, right? And that's breaking it down into a really simplification, right? Product manager, but what I heard you saying is that product manager it's more about solving the problem, as in how can we make this product better and more engaging and more useful for our users and our consumers, and also is going to benefit the company, right? So you've got your goals for the company, and you've got your goals, you've got your market growth goals, whatever the product is, and then you've got your goals for engagement and your goals for, and I just think and it makes me a lot more interested in product management than I would have ever thought I would be, and I can't believe we haven't had this conversation sooner.
You thought I just sat at a desk all day and did boring stuff.
Well, I don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that sounds like a really cool. I mean, I'm doing a similar thing, but with a different kind of path, because I'm not managing product, I'm managing customer expectations, and I'm working directly with the customers, but it's all about solving problems. It's all about finding a solution, and it's all about like, hey, here's where we want to get to, and then how do we get there? So those similarities between a product manager role and a business development role, and really, if we get real deep, those translate into operations and everything. And I guess I'm just connecting the dots of how similar a lot of roles are in companies, but with different inputs. Like, a product manager has different inputs and different responsibilities, but the goal is to solve problems and to make things better, to increase the bottom line, right? That's everybody's goal in a company. Like, if you're at a company and you're in HR, you're working to increase the amount of visibility you have with candidates, trying to make sure the employees are happy and have the right benefits package. You're trying to figure out how you can recruit and compete with other top companies, right? And you're all moving to the same goal: hire better people so you can have better work, so you can make customers happier, and you can make more money. They all do the same thing. So I just think that's super neat the way you explained it. And again, it made me a lot more interested in that. And it made me, maybe I won't gloss over next time I meet somebody and they say, I'm a product manager. I might go, all right, cool. So, dude, did you see that Reds game the other night? I'd be like, hey, like, what does your job entail? That's actually really neat.
You won't roll your eyes, is what you're saying.
Roll my eyes makes me sound like I'm looking down my nose. I would just say like, I've never stopped to ask what does it mean to be a product manager. It sounds a lot like, I mean, a much more complex thing than I would have ever guessed.
Yeah. No, I mean, you beat me to it. I think there's a lot of similarities in a business development role in terms of some of the skill sets or responsibilities that you would do in that versus a product manager. And at the same time, just knowing what you do, I think you would excel at being a product manager per se. Is that you kicking something, by the way?
I went like this.
You're scaring me. I thought that the TV outside might have fallen.
Well, you got like 17 great backups.
Not to derail real quick, but I got another TV, Cole, and I didn't properly put it up, and I thought that noise might have been the TV falling down. So you're scaring me.
I have to go get I guess I have to get another one.
But another thought related to just similarities or overlap in roles is I think there is a point in time, or how do I want to describe this? Because I deal with this in my day-to-day with where I'm at, where there is some ambiguity and overlap in, my role versus another role. I'm not going to get into the specifics in terms of these particular roles, but point being, like, I think no matter where you work, no matter the size of the company, there's going to be, again, I'm repeating myself, but there's going to be shared responsibility or overlap. Like, oh, maybe Cole could do that, or no, maybe I could do that. And that's where I think communication is so important at the end of the day, because, I could maybe leave a meeting and my interpretation could be, oh, I'm going to go take on whatever that action item was, versus Cole in his mind thought that it was up to him to go run with taking the lead on that particular action item.
Right.
Point being, you got to make sure you're communicating with your stakeholders or whomever you're partnering with, letting them know, like, hey, I'm signing up for this action item. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm oversimplifying things, but the point being is it's extremely important to communicate. And there's nothing wrong with over communicating. I'd rather have Cole say in this example, yeah, I knew that, Hayden, you were going to run with that action item. And that's where, again, I make sure that I follow up with people or I take notes, simplified notes. I'm not going to go have a 10-page, annotation of every single thing that was said, but just the key points and action items. So if action item 1 was discussed early on, it doesn't matter. I would make sure that it has a clear owner, or at least it's got clear owners. That way those two people can follow up and talk with one another versus, okay, we all were brought into this meeting. We all spoke verbally. Maybe there were a couple of PowerPoint slides flashed, but no one was really recapping action items or next steps. And that's super frustrating to me. Maybe that's my learning style and how I like to work. But I think more times than not, people do appreciate those quick bullet points of, hey, here's what we ran through. These are the action items, or these are the next steps. These are the folks that are going to help take on these action items versus, oh, yeah, I think so-and-so is going to do that, but I'm not sure. Let me go ping or let me go call so-and-so to double check. Like, how do you cut down that follow-up time or that debriefing time? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, too, that's like the catch-22 of, and like the problem with any meeting or any organization. It's like, you can try your best at it, but communication's always the biggest problem. If you go to any company, they'd say our number one problem is keeping people. Second problem is communication. Every single one. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could walk into a company that would say their operations and their sales are on the same page. Their operations and their marketing are their marketing and their sales are on they'd say, well, they just don't. Any company, and that's a thing that it takes a lot of practice and a lot of repetition to communicate well. But I like the point you made. And also, like you said, the overlap. So like product manager, my first thought when you were talking about being a product manager is I'm working with a project manager right now from a company called JLL. I'm not going to talk about any more about it, but it's JLL, which everybody knows them, global project management company, huge. Mm-hmm. And I'm working with a PM from there.
Yeah.
A lot of what they're doing is similar, but it's just for a product base. But I feel like there might be some overlap, and maybe like within a company that a project manager and a product manager have to be involved on this goal, right? I feel like there's some overlap with what those roles do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There are definitely some project roles at where I'm at, and again, I'm not going to get too specific as well. But in my mind, the difference between a product manager and a project manager, or at least the biggest difference, is a project manager with a, is that a J?
It's a J.
Thank you. I had to think there for a sec. Project manager is more so focused on, I don't know if I'd say short term, but they have, again, a North Star, and that's all they care about. They want to find a way to get there, make sure that the team or teams are delivering their deliverables to get to whatever that project needs to be, and they're trying to hit that timeline. Whereas a product manager, yes, is going to be involved potentially in a particular project, let's say, but they're continuing to evolve that product and grow it. Like there's a roadmap. Like, yeah, there's that North Star, but then there's another North Star.
It's a continuous improvement and continuous work versus a project manager is more, like you said, okay, because like in a product, let's say you've got in your product management role, I'm just going to make an analogy here and tell me if I'm completely wrong, but let's say you've got, all right, here's one of these goals you guys want to hit, right, within this year. Okay, you're going to have different projects inside of that to get to that goal.
Yeah.
So your job is to manage to that goal, and you might have project managers that would come in just in this situation and say, okay, I'm going to get this done, this piece of it done, and then I'm going to move on to my next project. Versus you're continuously having to input into that. It's not a project, it's an ongoing management of something.
I would agree with that, definitely. And at the same time, I'd also call out that a product manager or a project manager can mean multiple different things to different people at different companies. So again, that's where I caveated things saying like, this is my take or my opinion. But yeah, another analogy that's pretty common in the product world is like you're raising a baby, especially in the startup world. Sometimes you unfortunately have like an ugly baby, or you might want to, I've heard people say kill the baby, which means like the product is
my baby's not ugly, yours is.
Right.
That's the typical.
But point being, like, you want to grow a healthy baby. Like, it starts somewhere, that ideation process, and then you want to make it turn into like a fully baked and mature kid that grows up to be, a teenager and an adult.
Healthy and adult, yeah.
Yeah, like, again, that's my analogy of like a product starts somewhere, and that's where this whole point of MVP comes into play, minimal viable product. And we could spend a whole episode just talking about that, but I don't want to.
We should get into that in another episode.
Yeah.
I have a question, and this is a very loaded, not loaded question, but there's a lot of routes you could go with this.
Fire away.
But first comment before I ask that question is, it is very well known typically that product managers are paid pretty well. You can make a very good living.
Are you trying to ask how much I make?
No. What I'm saying is that product managers, generally speaking, can make very good money, make a very, living for them and their families. So my question to you is, for people that are out there thinking of switching roles or looking into getting a product manager role, the first question would be is, what would you recommend? Because you didn't go to school for product management, right? I mean, you didn't get a degree in product management. You want to get a degree in marketing, correct? So what did you do to get yourself into a product management role? What recommendations? And again, it's a very loaded question, but what recommendations would you say to people that, kids coming out of college or anything, and say, hey, that, like, I just listened to what Hayden said about being a product manager because you got me gassed up about it. I don't want to become a product manager, but I could see a lot of excitement about going into a role like that. And so, what would you recommend to people that are thinking about, getting into that role or saying, hey, I want to go search out a product management role? What would you recommend them doing?
So the first thing that I'll say is I think product management is a growing career. The second thing that I'll say in terms of how I would answer that question is there are certain skill sets or underlying traits that a person should probably possess if they want to get into product management. And those would be someone that's open-minded, slash is very curious. Again, going back to me wanting to know why things work the way they do today, like what problems could exist.
It lended itself well to that.
Exactly. The third thing is not settling in terms of, okay, this might be what works today, but knowing that we got to continue to have this thing grow. That's extremely important. There's a few different ways that you could spin that. The fourth would be having a data background or being interested in metrics.
Okay.
You don't necessarily need to have like a full-fledged like MBA in data science or anything like that. At least, again, I don't think so. But wanting to know, okay, going back to that example with the sign-on, I want to know how many people are, let's say, bouncing from my website after reaching the sign-in page, like asking those questions. And that ties in with the curiosity piece. So knowing, okay, we had 50,000 people sign in the month of, June? We only...
No, that was our day yesterday on our website.
Yeah, right. We're well on our way. But going back to that, we had 50,000 visits to our website, but only 5,000 people ended up signing in or creating an account. So like that would be like a conversion rate.
And you're saying somebody needs to be
curious and wanting to know those metrics
why did
too.
Okay,
exactly. Okay. And someone that's willing to not be the smartest person in the room, which I think is...
Put their pride aside, basically.
Yeah, which it's tough for any person, I think. But I recognize that early on that there are a lot of smart people out there. And I'm not saying that, I'm not smart, because I like to think I'm pretty smart. But anyhow, recognize that there are other people part of this team. You can go far on your own, but you can go further together, whether that's just having another person or it's a larger team and willing to work with others. So like those are like the skill sets or the traits that you want to possess if you want to get into product management. And for me personally, I happen to kind of have all of those, but I organically kind of stumbled into some things too in terms of like my path to where I am today, where I did a small startup and I was running different aspects of the business, wearing multiple different hats, like iterating on products.
You
on
were
the
learning about being a product.
Exactly.
Yeah, without even knowing it.
Right. Learning through experience versus reading out of a textbook. I know you hear it all the time. Like, you need to go take this course. You need to go to this school to get this degree. And yes, to some extent that helps. But depending on like the career path, that isn't always the case. And that's where I personally have benefited from going out and trying things on my own or experimenting, starting something and learning that way. And that's kind of helped me get my foot in the door with the product management world, analytics. I was a data analyst previously, where I was supporting business teams, understanding, okay, yeah, this is why you might be having people drop off from your sign-in page.
Right.
Or here's your conversion rate. Again, those are just very broad examples. So again, that's how I would answer that question. I think there are a lot of people that might want to get into, and I'll use product management as an example, a given role, but they don't know all that's involved. And I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm constantly learning.
Right.
I've got a long way to go. But they like the idea of something, but you got to make sure you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get involved in multiple different areas. And that's where I keep throwing out that analogy of you got to wear multiple different hats. Because one day I could be meeting with business partners, trying to better understand, okay, what the heck's going on here with the business, or what's the issue?
What's the problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I need to know more. And just because, Cole, you give me that first answer, I'm going to be like that little kid where you keep asking why. I think there's something like the 5 levels of why or something.
Ask 5 whys.
Yeah, you keep trying to get to the foundational, like, why or the nucleus.
Every time you ask why, your scope goes like this. Why this? Why this? Why? That's why our president of our company always tells me when I ask him a question. He goes, He's like, if you ask why 5 times, you'll have the answer. I'm like, or you could just tell me the answer.
spot on with that. I lost my train of thought there, though.
No, you were just saying, like, you realize that I lost your train of thought, too, because we went down the why.
Oh, no. Shoot, it's going to come back to me. But...
Oh, you were talking about wearing different hats and being able to be, and how you have to go through different, like, you're saying one day you could be meeting with...
Right. So, again, people don't always know what goes into a role. And, again, I'm using product management, for example. This can be for any role.
Yeah, but...
Like, at surface level, it's like, oh, that's easier, or maybe that's super hard. Like, again, it goes both ways. But going back to product management, again, I was using, the example of one day a meeting with business partners. The next day I could be getting into what I call the trenches of, like, data, looking at the database and all the analytics. Another day I could be heavily focused on working with my development team and trying to help write stories. And sometimes my day could consist of a couple of hours of all 3 of those things.
Right,
so again, every day is different. And that's one thing that I enjoy about being a product manager is every day is different versus, it's the same thing day in and day out, like you're clocking in, which we need people and roles like that. And some people excel and want that. Yeah.
There's some roles you can't avoid that.
Right. And that's where I say it truly goes back to the person. What are your career aspirations? What are you interested in? And at the same time, the other thing that I'll share is just because you're interested in something today doesn't mean you should be locked into it forever. I think that's an outdated paradigm where, okay, Cole, let's say you studied finance or accounting. You need to be an accountant for the next 40 years of your life after you graduate. I don't subscribe to that. Oh. I think you have every right to go out and try something different if, you've got a curiosity for a new passion. And there's a lot of different ways you could go about approaching that. I'm not saying like quit your job. Like you probably want to have things lined up, or maybe heck, you do want to quit. Again, that to each their own in terms of how they want to handle that situation. But my main point is you don't need to be locked into a particular profession for your entire working career. I think you should switch it up.
Be flexible enough to reinvent yourself or to try new things that interest you.
You said that much more gracefully than I did. Love it. Yes.
Reinvent yourself.
Reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
It's
never too late to start something new.
I got it hanging up on my wall out there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. You didn't notice that?
No. There's a Winston Churchill quote, too, that I just love, but we don't have to get into that. But no, I appreciate the education on the product management because I did not know what it meant other than I'm like, it kind of sounds like super boring, to be honest.
Well, I mean, to some it does, and that's why...
Well, the title just sounded boring.
Sure, right.
Like, the title just sounded like, again, you just don't know what you don't know.
I think on another future episode, we talk more about kind of your background, your role. I know we've touched on it too, but like I want to get deeper, just like I kind of got a little bit.
Let's get into it.
You want to get into it now?
No, another episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, yeah. I mean, we can keep going, but...
I say we wrap it up for the night because you just educated me so much. And I do feel like our listeners...
You feel like quitting your job and applying to be a product manager?
Nah, but it sounds fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd rather be a product manager for my own company if we're going to get like really serious. I mean, I'd rather when we start our a software business or something like that. A lot of what that's going to entail is us product managing in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. You're your CEO of your product. So yeah, I mean, it just sounds to me there's a lot of people that I know that are younger, that are getting into the workforce, that are, I've got my 2 brother-in-laws just graduated high school. They're going to college. Like, product managers make a great living. That's something they want to get into. Maybe, if they're listening to this, shout out, guys. Maybe you've got some more information and maybe look into it down the line. Or anybody else that's looking for a career change. I think it's interesting enough and sounds like a good option for people to look at. And that's why I want to talk about it.
Love all that. Yeah.
Dude, rock it out, man. This was an awesome episode.
Heck yeah, man. Every episode is awesome.
This one was awesome.
They're all unique in their own way. And that's what is so awesome as a person on the other end. You might look at the contents of episode number 40. Heck, what is this, 46?
Is it 6?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 46.
Ooh!
46 or something like that.
Cranking out good stuff.
Yeah, and be like, you know what? That resonates with me. I want to learn more. I'm intrigued. I'm going to press play. Or you might be the other person like, I don't give a shit about this. I'm not going to listen. But episode 37 sounds pretty darn good because I want to work on my mental health or my fitness.
I'll say this and we'll wrap up with that. At least we're not sitting here just talking to talk. Because some people like that.
I think we are at times, but that's the good thing. You want to have natural. We're having an organic conversation.
But I'm saying, like, at least we're not like, I don't know. There's some stuff I listen to. I'm just like,
we're not talking keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, KUWTK.
We might lose all of our followers.
My wife would be our number one super fan if we talked about that. All right, let's sign off,
guys, girls. Thank you. As always, for listening. We continue, and I say this sincerely, continue to grow with each and every episode. We have some exciting guests. I know the last few episodes have just been Cole and I. Hopefully we have been stimulating your minds, but we are going to have some exciting guests on to learn about their stories and how they could benefit us all. A lot of good stuff in the works. We'll continue to manifest that and say that every time. We've got some additional sponsors in the work as well, but don't want to announce those just yet.
We're still working on closing them. That's why.
Yeah,
they're coming through.
But we've already actually closed another one.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like a snowball effect happening right now. I'm just telling you, almost too much to keep up with.
This is our signature sign off, where we don't know how to sign off. But guys, thanks again. We'll talk to you next time. God bless.
Thanks.